Good evening, guys. Good evening, Jeremy. Good evening to the Sunshine Podcast. Welcome to the Poly Pimps. Um, Tonight we are missing the other pimp, but hopefully she'll be here after the new year. So thank you for coming to our last show of the year. I am so excited to have you guys here, especially with the topic that we have tonight to discuss. Welcome everybody who's watching. We are the Poly Pimps. Like I said, the other half is missing. But tonight we are here to talk about. No, we're not going to say anything yet about that because I don't think they can see the top. So we can just go around the room and introduce ourselves quickly for the viewers. Um, and then so they can get to know us, where we're coming from, basically your a quick view of your polyamorous journey or non-monogamous journey. You want to start, maybe Jeremy, since you're by yourself?
Yeah, I'll start off. So my non-monogamous journey began about 7 years ago. I entered as a swinger and found out that that lifestyle didn't necessarily fit exactly what I was looking for, but I didn't realize what I was looking for was actually a possibility. Just like all forms of non-monogamy, people don't believe it's a possibility. But as my journey progressed, I've slid into solo polyamory, and I've been doing that for about a year now. And here I am.
Thank you, Jeremy. And now we are moving to the Sunshine and Rainbows podcast.
Hey, I'm Shani. Yeah, I actually write a lot about polyamory, and of course, we have the podcast, but I've been in this like community, I guess, for about almost 4 years, and I came here kind of by accident, stumbled upon it, like was accidentally introduced to it in a divorce support group, and was like, oh snap, here are my people. Who knew? So like kind of been here since then. So I just came into this space like for freedom and liberation and love and all the fun things. That's really what I came here for, and that's what keeps me here.
Okay, thank you.
Hello, everyone. I'm Sunjata, and I've been living non-monogamously and polyamorously since 2017. So 7 years, a little over 7 years now. And I got here out of it's how do I say it? I guess love. I guess out of love or out of a desire to be free and liberated. It's kind of an interesting. I got here in an interesting way because I caught feelings for a coworker. And that was like the first time that I had an inkling that I had the capacity to love more than one person romantically, because everything was all good at home with my wife. And in my ignorance, I felt like if everything was good at home, I wouldn't want anything else. I didn't have an idea that I was non-monogamous or polyamorous back, when I first made that discovery that I had those feelings. I didn't even know, I hadn't heard of those terms or anything. And just over the course of some time, I began to like look up things on the internet about what I was feeling, and ran into the term of polyamory, and it resonated. And I still wanted to keep my marriage together. So I went to counseling on and off for 6 years, trying to suppress what was like bubbling up inside of me. And so I couldn't do it anymore. And that was 2017 when my ex and I separated, and I've been living my truth ever since.
That sounds, I hear a lot of similar stories. First, for those who don't know me, hopefully all of you know me by now, but my name is Me Too. I am one half of the Poly Pimps. I am Haitian born and raised, and I feel like I've always been non-monogamous. I just didn't know what, I guess, how to express myself, what it really was. I just knew I would catch feelings for other people at times, more than one. And in 2018, when I separated, I started living I started living my polyamorous journey after a friend told me exactly what I was looking for, because I didn't know. I just kept talking about, I want to experience life. I want to have certain experiences. I want threesomes. I want all of it. I want to be able to love people freely and openly. So he mentioned polyamory and he invited me into a group. It was not a dating group, it was just for information. He's like, I think you need to get in this group and you'll find the information that you're looking for. And shortly after that, a lady in that group, she's Haitian as well. And she's like, oh, you should join that other group. It's similar, but it's a dating group. And I've been in those groups learning and reading every books that everybody's recommending, just because I wanted to do it right, because so many of us, so many people are jumping into non-monogamy without the knowledge, the tools that they require to be successful at living this simple but complicated at times life that we are choosing. So I feel like I was going to ask a question and I already forgot. um,
I got a question.
so
Hold on,
yes,
before you ask your question, did I hear you say you wanted 3 subs?
threesomes.
Three
You know,
sums.
Wow.
threesomes. So my
Sorry, viewers
accent,
did not hear that.
my accent is gonna throw you off at times, and I
Okay.
love it because sometimes I'll actually just say things bad on purpose and blame it on my accent. I'll be like, I'm going to the bitch, and they're like, "What did you sound like the bitch?" And they're like, I don't think that's what she meant." "Oh, really? That's not all right." Yeah. So sometimes I'll blame it on my accent, but threesomes. That was the first thing that came to mind when I thought about or talked about um experiencing life. And that's something I had mentioned to my ex-husband at the time. Of course, he didn't want anything to do with that. He didn't even want to have the conversation. So I was pretty much left alone to figure it out on my own.
And
So yep, yep. So
You have that in
um
common.
see, a lot to talk about. So Jeremy, you said you started in 2018. Were you married? Like, how did that start for you?
yes, so what happened is a lot of my friends, for some reason, this all happened at the same time. One of my friends approached me and she just mentioned, like casually mentioned, that her and her husband had started to begin swinging and she was telling me about it. And I was like, that is really interesting. They got me started. And then another friend of mine came to me, and him and his wife weren't doing so good. But then they mentioned, he was like, hey, have you noticed that we've been doing a lot better? I was like, yeah, actually, I've noticed y'all have been very happy. And then he got very excited to show me pictures and everything. And I was like, okay, I was not ready for that. But either way, that got me interested enough to start a conversation with my then wife. So we spent about maybe 3, 4 months learning and slowly getting into conversation before we started experimenting with others. And that is how we ended up getting into the swinging lifestyle. And I did that for 5 years. Mhm.
Until it wasn't satisfying, fulfilling
So
anymore.
swinging did not necessarily turn out perfect. So that marriage ended up dissolving just because obviously when you're trying to, at least for some people, especially if you are a polyamorous person, because we get into the whole conversation of viewing non-monogamy as a choice versus an actual orientation. And I think when you suppress that, you still open up for some inappropriate behavior. So where people may connect with someone, but you don't want to completely validate that connection and you want to keep it a purely sexual connection. So she was suppressing that, and that kind of ended up to an affair, which dissolved the marriage. So from there, I kind of looked into exploring more of, I didn't want to hide the fact that, like, we'll get into the conversation later, but when you look at all of the ways you can be attracted or into or pulled towards a person, I wanted to explore the other ways I was pulled towards people. So that is how I got into polyamory.
And I think that's going to be part of our main conversation tonight is the different ways to experience relationships, which brings the relationship buckets. I can't even remember. Actually, I remember how I went and listened to y'all's podcast. I So Sunjata would pop up on my, like, in the groups that I was at or in at times, and then I was like, oh yeah, he's cute, and then I just keep it moving. And one day, actually, Shin popped up in the suggested friends on Facebook. Now I was like, oh, she looks kind of familiar, but let me see why she's a suggested person for me. So when I clicked on her, I saw that we had a bunch of friends in common, but they were all polyamorous people. And I was like, okay, maybe she's from one of the groups. And then I went onto her profile and saw their podcast, and I just started listening to one of the episodes, and I was like automatically drawn in. I was like, oh yes, this is so good. Like, I've never really heard polyamory stuff before. But it's I always tell people I don't feel like I am very good with words because I have a lot of stuff in my head that I'm trying to get out, and they never really come out the way I envision it. And sometimes, I say something and I think I'm very, very clear and precise in what and people would look at me like they're still confused. I'm like, oh, so then I have to go back and break it down and explain things. But the way that you guys talk in your podcast, I found it very attractive because I'm like, yes, that's what I want to say. You said it exactly the way I wanted to say it. It's kind of like when you see a poem or you hear a song and you're like, this is exactly how I wanted to tell this person I love them. But this person just said it exactly the way you wanted to. So that's how I stumbled up on you guys. And so I listened to the whole first season, and now I'm like, where's season 2? Season 2.
It's coming. 2025.
Yes. So we're patiently waiting for Sunshine and Rainbows podcast season 2 to come up. So now y'all's turn. What time is it? I don't want to take up too much time. Okay, so I guess maybe we can just dive into the relationship buckets. The reason why we are here tonight is just like you said, Jeremy. A lot of times, a lot of us, we come into the non-monogamous life through swinging.
Yeah,
it wasn't my experience, but I've heard so many people have that similar experience. Swinging was never attractive to me, and it still isn't. I can be in that space, but you're gonna look at me like I'm a monogamous person. So whoever I came with, I probably will hang out with them in that space. But also, I find that a lot of swingers, once their partners start catching feelings for other people, that's the end of it, and that's when they start having issues. I went to this resort. It's a swingers resort a couple of years ago, and when I went there, I just wanted to see the place. So I went when the party was done. I went on a Sunday night, just when everybody was leaving. I had the chance to catch a few people that were left there and got to talking to them, and they were all like, oh no, he can't do this without me. I can't do this without him. She can't do this. And I was like, that is typical swinging behavior. And it, we got to talking and I realized, yeah, that's definitely not the life for me, because when I'm falling head over heels for this person and you're telling me, no, I cannot go there, then we're going to start having problems. It's going to make me feel like it's monogamy times 10 with a little bit of, you can do this. I feel like it's even more controlling. So yeah, we can talk about the relationship buckets with you guys to figure out. But I guess before we get there, there are quite a few comments in the comment section. We have Anne. Hey, Anne. Hey, Amistad. Thank you for joining in. How is non-monogamy? Let me put it so you guys can see it too, and you can chime in. How is non-monogamy different from being a hoe or a thought?
I mean, let's bring the bucket. You want to bring the buckets into this?
How is it different? I guess my answer would be,
first of all, I mean, if you can be a hoe or a thought and also be non-monogamous if you like, okay? The two things are not mutually exclusive. You could be a non-monogamous hoe or a non-monogamous thought if you like. It really depends on what you call in a hoe.
yeah.
Like, are you saying a hoe is somebody who does what they want to do? Because in that case, I'm definitely one. But if you're saying a hoe is somebody who just like sleeps around like indiscriminately, I would not say that most polyamorous people are doing that. I think, there's feelings involved. It's not just about sex, right? There's other things involved, like intellectual stimulation and emotional connection and platonic depth, and all that stuff is involved.
Practical life support.
Right. Like that could be your life support, your ride or your homie, just like you would have in a monogamous relationship. So you can be both. You could be a monogamous hoe or a thought too, I'm just saying.
There are lots of them out there, actually.
Okay.
Thank you, Shan. Tell me more about it being an orientation and not a choice. Jeremy, you want to get this one since you're the one who
picked it up? That one. Okay. All right. So you can view non-monogamy as a choice versus an orientation, which when you look at typically in the swinging community, because the swinging community, from what I've experienced, is more about the fun of sexual interaction. So a lot of people, you hear them say, I could take it or leave it. I'm just doing this for fun. Versus where when it's an orientation, I look at it as I would be being dishonest with myself if I did not do this. So that is what I mean by an orientation versus a choice, just whether or not this is something that you're deciding to do for entertainment, or if this is something that you feel relates to you being your authentic self.
Do you think ambiemory is a thing, Jeremy? Like ambiemory, people who feel like they could either be monogamous or non-monogamous?
I don't know if, well, yes, to an extent. I do believe that people can float between what currently draws them in. Like, people can be fully polyamorous and be completely authentic while doing that, but they can fall for a specific person and maybe decide, for this specific relationship, I do want to explore the monogamous side, or I want to be more monogamous with them. But that doesn't take away the fact that they have the capacity to be polyamorous. So yes, ambiemory is a thing, but I do believe that someone can switch from practicing polyamory, because you can be polyamorous without partners at all, or only one partner.
Yeah.
So I think it just depends on what people are choosing to explore at the moment.
Honestly, like for me, I think being ambiamorous is more like what I'm choosing to do in the moment, but that does not stop me from being polyamorous or non-monogamous, right? I may choose to live with this partner monogamously, but also knowing that not the choice, but the option, if it presented itself, is still there for me. Let's say this person needs me to be monogamous for I don't know, 6 months, a year, and I agree to that. But probably one of my agreements would be like, well, in the meantime, if I come across somebody that I connect with on whatever level, I would like the option to be able to explore that as well without feeling like I am cheating. Because as we know it in monogamy, you can't even have the opposite sex as a best friend or as a close friend because it's inappropriate a lot of times for many people. If I'm a woman, I can be really good friend with a guy because apparently opposite sex cannot be friends without sex and everything else. And if we think about it, sex is probably the most threatening part of monogamy for a lot of people. Um, so as far as ambyamory, I think it's more like something that you choosing to do versus an orientation. But I think being non-monogamous is definitely an orientation. It's just kind of like if I'm gay, I'm gay. I don't know what you want me to, because sometimes I can't even imagine ever going back to monogamy for whatever that reason may be, because it would go against everything that I believe and pretty much who I am.
Yeah. I think a lot of people get confused because they'll hear people who use polyamory as a practice and as orientation.
Mm-hmm.
So a lot of times that can be confusing for, I guess, like, newbies or outsiders looking in. I'll say for myself, I consider myself polyamorous. Meaning, like, I believe it is the way I'm wired. It's a relationship orientation for me, in terms of the way I relate, romantically, sexually, my capacity for love. It's not something I can choose and the reason why I know that to be the case for me is because I actively for several years tried to not choose it. And it was just, I kept being pulled towards this, honoring this part of my nature.
Yeah, I'm always on the fence about this myself because I was monogamous for a long time and never felt tempted to stray in these ways. Like I never felt the temptation to like swing or bring it up or anything like that. But I definitely like this side better. I
Yeah.
like the polyamorous side better. Like this is so I don't know if I would say, it's really hard to say if something is a choice or an orientation when it's so not normalized. Like we don't know because if you don't know that something exists, how can you even have the words for it? So
Right.
this is something I'm always on the fence about. I don't really have like a firm opinion on this yet, I don't think.
Okay. Oh, okay. We are watching. Thank you for watching, Michelle. Excellent podcast. Thank you. Oh, that's Marquez. Hey, Marquez. Poly is where swingers go when they are done and retired. Wow.
Funny.
Well,
Wow, that's
I don't
cool.
know if I'm ever going to be. Well, I guess he said for swingers. So, and Anne said, good question, Stud. Well, I am going to put the link in the comment section. If any of you guys want to pop in, show your face, ask a question, make a comment, you can do that by clicking on this link. So we are going to continue with our conversation. Now, I cannot wait to get to the goodies of relationship buckets. So how did you guys come up with that? And what is relationship buckets?
So when I first started my polyamorous journey and living my truth, I started dating, I guess, relatively actively and consistently, because I truly enjoy having life partnership. And I knew as soon as my marriage was over that I wanted to have a nesting partner, someone to do life with. So I got out there and I dated a lot of people, and ultimately over time it began to feel like transactional, and it felt like if someone I dated and I didn't align in the romantic way, then it was like the whole relationship got thrown out, and I didn't like the way that felt. Um, I didn't like the harm that I felt like that caused, just from dating with that like all or nothing type of energy and desire. And I decided that I didn't want to date that way anymore. I decided that I wanted to cultivate long-term loving connections. And I feel like that's probably what the phrase I came up with first, to help like lay the foundation for everything else that came from there. And basically what I did was I literally started having in the getting to know you conversations when we go out with somebody over, coffee or tea, or go for a walk in a park or dinner or something. I would be very upfront with women and say that, I'm looking to cultivate long-term loving connections based on where we land organically. I don't care if we land on like, okay, so for whatever reason, I came up with these at this point, as I'm thinking through this process, I'm like, there's certain areas that me and someone typically align in. We either align, and it could be one of them or a bunch of them. We either align on a platonic basis, like we become really cool in that way. We got some familial energy where we kind of share a lot of similar family values, child raising values, etc. We got a dope intellectual connection where we're stimulated intellectually in a lot of the same ways, and that may be where we really vibe. Or the romance is popping.
I think it was sexual.
Sexual
right?
was next.
Yeah.
Or sexual. Because it was romance, but then we changed it to attraction.
Yeah. Okay. I'm not even gonna get in there. Go ahead.
Okay.
Go ahead.
So I literally would say to women in those conversations, like I would just want to, spend time together, get to know one another, and see where we land organically. And based on my experiences over the last few years, it feels like it takes time for that to show up. It could take 6 to 12 months, for that to like really sort itself out. And I started calling them buckets. I started calling them the 5 buckets, those things: familial, platonic, intellectual, romantic, and sexual. And I'm like, let's just see where we land. It could be 1, it could be 2, it could be all of them, but let's see like what areas we truly are aligned in. And it just came out of wanting to reduce harm. And it came out of a desire to, not throw people away and not be thrown away.
I agree. The whole throwing people away, that's another thing I tell people. I'm like, I don't like to call, separation a breakup, right? We transition into something different because a breakup sounds so harsh. And typically when a breakup happens, it's like you don't even want to talk to that person anymore. Like that's the mindset.
Yeah.
So I usually tell people I don't really break up with people because I literally am friends with all the exes from when I was a teenager up till, now. We're not in daily contact, but I know I can just call, hey, what's up? They can do the same. I don't like to discard people because I feel like every relationship is important. It may not be what it used to be 2 months ago or 2 years ago, but it's still a relationship. And I feel like if you have some kind of friendship, I would hope there's some form of friendship for whatever bucket you're going to fall into, to where if one of them doesn't work, then the foundation, which is the friendship, is always going to be there. And I don't see a reason why not. You can't continue to be friends unless it was an abusive relationship. Obviously, you're not going to be recommended to stay in that. But I always tell people it's like a 2-story house or however many stories you have. The foundation, the first floor, all of that is always going to be the friendship. And then whatever other layers you want to add to that house is up to you. But when all of it crumbles, you still have the foundation that you can go with. So
how's that going for you? I guess you already said that you're still friends with people you've explored.
I only have one person that used to be in my life that is not anymore, because of his choosing. But that's pretty much it. Everybody else we're cool, we're fine, we keep it moving. Yeah. Jeremy, you're quiet over there. Are you sleeping?
I'm just listening. I'm just soaking it all in. I have some thoughts in the conversation, and I'll go ahead and interject now. So I think it's interesting. Like I listened to your podcast about the relationship buckets, and one thing that I was thinking is that while that can be healthy to know where you stand in a relationship or like what parts and what facets, what buckets that person does fill. That also made me think about how unhealthy it can be when we don't think of relationships in that way. And we take what is supposed to be a strictly sexual connection or a strictly platonic connection, and where there's like high compatibility in one of those areas. And then we try to force it into that overall romantic.
Yes.
We're
I think
making it fit where it's not supposed to.
Yeah.
yes, that's caused a lot of relationship failure for me. Is,
Yeah.
for example, I've met people that I'm highly attracted to for whatever reason, but in a relationship, it does not work out because we're not compatible, like in the slightest, intellectually, platonically, or anything like that. So that was probably one of my biggest takeaways.
Yeah, and I think like one of the things I like about the using the buckets is it helps me to stay off the escalator, because instead of doing what Jeremy just brought up, which is trying to force everything into romance, because when we do that, we force everything into romance. If you want to pull back, you want to break up, now you've demoted the person. They have to take a step down the escalator, and oh my gosh, ouch, right? That hurts. Whereas we could just say, look, here's where we're compatible. Let's keep all the parts of the buckets that we love. I love your platonic energy. I love going out on the town with you. I love our intellectual conversations, but maybe the sexual connection is not there. Let's just minus that, like subtract that, and we could still keep the other connection. So for me, it helps to stay off that escalator. It helps to stay off of the demotion and promotion track, and help to give us language to kind of explain ourselves to people, explain your feelings and be clear so that the person can be like, okay, I understand what you mean. And they can decide what they want to do with that. And hopefully you guys can still maintain the parts of your relationship that work well.
And I agree with you, Shani. That's something that I truly appreciate too in my journey in non-monogamy. Obviously, we've all had mishaps when we first started, things we didn't know, things we thought were supposed to be a certain way. But as the people who truly want to have this life and be successful, we work really hard to try and figure things out. So that's one thing I truly appreciate in this journey, because when I look at my life, I have so many people in my life and they are where they need to be. There's no pressure.
Yes.
Yes, I have a couple of sexual partners, and that's all we are now. I'm not saying we're not friends. We go hang out, we go on dates, we have fun doing other things outside of the bedroom, but our best energy is in the bedroom and doing certain things. Make me feel like a porn star.
Nothing wrong with that.
Let's do it, So I love the fact that I can have that with somebody, and he's not putting pressure on me. I'm not putting pressure on him to, okay, what are we? Like, what is my title? What am I to you? What, like, too many questions when there really needs to be none. It's just like, let's have some fun. There's too much talk in this room. So I truly appreciate that part in non-monogamy, the fact that you can, and that's it's been a journey to get here to where I know exactly. That's why when I listened to that episode, I was like, that's what I've been saying all this time. I didn't know, I didn't have a name for it, but in my head, I have my people categorized, and I have, some other people that it's like, even though we don't live together, but those are the people I kind of am doing life with. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
So they're not nesting partners, but they are, like, they occupy that space in my life.
Yeah. So the way that we talk about our different connections when we think about the buckets and the kind of like looking at the relationship through that lens, we talk about low, medium, or high alignment in a bucket.
Yes.
So, I would say, thinking about this person, name, whatever, I would say, what's your platonic, alignment like
How
in
would
that
you
bucket?
rate your platonic alignment?
Yeah.
It'd
And
be
we talk about that and break that down.
Yeah. We'll be like, well, we have great conversation and I feel like they really understand me and blah, blah, blah. So I would say it's probably high, like that kind of thing.
And it's been fun. Like we've done
It's
it
really
for
fun.
past
But we're
relationships.
rating it too. We're rating the alignments, basically.
We rate the alignments within the buckets.
That's a great idea.
Yeah, we do that. And it really helps to understand the relationship.
Yeah.
By having these conversations, it really helps to understand the relationship. And I would say and notice where maybe there's some tensions in the relationship or connection.
And sometimes we'll talk
and understanding why.
What we're struggling with in the relationship with. Like, what's the struggle? We'll be like, okay, I feel like our wires are getting crossed. Like sometimes the pattern is this. And we're like, oh my gosh, that's like an intellectual misalignment.
Right.
So it kind of gives you more language and it helps you like focus so that you can kind of like troubleshoot a little bit, and kind of figure out, what you can do to adjust.
Yeah, because in some instances, it goes back to like Jeremy was saying earlier around like our dominant conditioning and mindset is that we generally speaking, people will try to force relationships to look a certain way, especially if they take on a title.
Yeah.
Once someone says, "Oh, you're my boyfriend, my girlfriend, my partner," oftentimes a lot of people will say, "Well, then now you got to be all of these things and show up in all these ways because that's what a boyfriend, girlfriend, partner is supposed to do." And for me, in my journey, I just realized that's just not realistic. And I don't think that just because I can't be all the things that we can't be some other things. Anything. Like we can't. Let's vibe where we vibe, and where we don't vibe, maybe if we have some tension in our relationship, it's because we don't have a high alignment or a medium alignment in that area. So let's just not try. Let's not try to force that. Let's focus on the areas that we do have, a good amount of alignment in.
Yeah.
Yep. And that's
something to say.
That's one of the things I noticed is that so when you listen to polyamory and you think of many loves, you think initially you can think that everything is supposed to be this love connection. It's supposed to be like a romantic connection. So you meet with people and you begin talking to people, and as you work through that, it's kind of like you're evaluating it through this lens of, okay, where do I see this going romantically? And that's what I love is that the way that you presented it is very eye-opening because you're like, oh, this doesn't have to go romantic. I don't have to look at it that way. Like, I don't have to try to be like scoping you out to see like if there is a romantic future for us. So I think that's really cool.
And, another thing, I was talking to one of my partners recently, and we were just having some conversations around, relationships in general. And that's why so many people shy away from them, because it's so much pressure to be somebody all the time, no breaks. And, he was just saying, he's like, sometimes I just need a break. I don't need a breakup. I just need a break. But in so many relationships, people are not allowed to want a break without the other person taking it personally. And I'm just like, and that's why, being able to have different connections with different people is great because like I'm in a season of my life where I don't have a whole lot of time for anybody. I can make a little bit of time here and there, but I don't have as much time as I used to have because I'm juggling school, work, life, business, kids. So it's a lot of stuff. It's not that I don't want to engage like I normally do, but I need a break. And some days I totally withdraw. I need a day for myself. I need 2 days for myself, 5 days, whatever it needs. Now I will communicate to my partners, okay, I may need a little time here and there. Be patient with me. Because for me, one of my biggest pet peeves is non-communication. I don't care what it is, just let me know. So I know where we stand. And I don't like the silence. Like, let me know I'm gonna be in silence, then I know not to disturb or whatever. But yeah, basically he was just saying that a lot of times he shy away from the relationships because he's not allowed to have a break, and he feels like he should have I said, yes, you are perfectly right. You should be able to have a break. So and sometimes you can, just like we were talking about the relationship buckets, when you're not aligning in some areas, it's important to be able to identify those areas in order for you to kind of um find a solution to whatever the problem is at the time. It looks like we have some comments. Let's go over to the comments. Marie at Sun, love the idea of the relationship buckets and reducing harm when dating. Would you equate that or add it to the frame of relationship anarchy where each relationship has its value, or am I reaching?
Oh, absolutely. Thank you, Marie, for the comment.
Definitely rooted in relationship.
And absolutely, relationship anarchy is definitely the foundation, or that philosophy is at the foundation of the relationship buckets for sure.
Do you want to maybe give a quick idea for the people who don't know what that is, relationship anarchy?
It's kind of like, your relationship doesn't have to follow anything prescribed. You can make it all up as you like.
As you see fit for you and your partners.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And I would also add that relationship anarchists are really, a lot of them are huge on the idea of like not wanting to do labels and not putting any relationship on any type of hierarchy or pedestal of like primary, secondary relationships or anything like that. Relationship anarchy also doesn't say that romantic relationships are more valuable than, familial, sibling, auntie, cousin, friendships, relationships. Like they just love who they love, and, they live, freely and value all their relationships.
Thank you.
You mind if I comment on this one?
Yes, please.
All right. So with relationship anarchy, because that is one of the things that I practice. I practice solo polyamory and relationship anarchy. That's one of the things that I dealt with in the past is when you, there's a old like verse where it's like, when you're married, you forsake your mother and father, something like that. And what I noticed is whenever I would get into a romantic relationship, there's always this like priority, and it kind of circulates around the internet every now and then. Is like, who's more important, your mom or the person that you're dating? And I never enjoyed how that made me feel. So yes, relationship buckets, relationship anarchy, like not prioritizing a different style of relationship over another. All those connections are valuable.
Thank you, Jeremy. I definitely like how you said that. We're gonna take two more comments before we dive into the explanation of each bucket, so the audience can truly understand what we are talking about. Maggie, absolutely loved what Sun said and would like to learn more about cultivating loving relationships and introducing that concept to people I meet in a way they understand. And she has another one. Actually, I really want to say I want to learn how to navigate talking to others about cultivating loving relationships when not aligned with them intimately. I love that.
This is a good question. I feel like you can probably have a good answer for this one.
Yes, so I guess now we can get into it.
Yeah. And
tell them what you told me.
Oh.
You told me 3, however many years.
I mean, I say a lot of things, but give me, make sure I go in that way. That whole thing.
I know. Come on,
Yeah. So one of the first things I say to people in the dating process is, I don't want to do romance or bust. And, I say, I want to get to know, like, the way I explain how I'm dating and relating, I'm like, I just want to get to know people in a way that cultivates long-term loving connections. And, the way that, I think about it is there's 5 categories that, alignment shows up in relation, 5 primary categories where alignment shows up when dating and relating, or I'm sorry, when relating with other people. And then I name the buckets and I say, I just want to spend time together over time and see where we land organically.
Right.
And I'll say to someone, and generally speaking, that takes time. It takes 6 to 12 months. In my experience, for that to manifest.
I'm only giggling because for like the first 6 to 12 months we dated, he probably said, "See where we land," like countless
A million times.
He's like, I like you, but let's see where we land. This feels good,
Let's see
where we land. Like, hold on,
I've heard this before.
I'm up here like, you're good. You don't gotta worry about that.
So tell us about the familial bucket.
So the
A little
familial
bit more
bucket.
in depth.
Well, I feel like can you speak to it? Because I feel like you've done so much unpacking and writing about it.
Yeah, okay. The familial bucket's like that feeling of family. That feeling of I got you. You have similar values. You guys have shared history. It's like that kind of. Even when we're talking about monogamous people, when they get married, they're now family, like there's that energy of we got each other's back. You know what I mean? It's like that security, that kind of that safety net. It feels like a safety net. That's what familial connection is like. So a lot of times if you and somebody else have similar like values around that kind of stuff, like if you have similar like core values, you might have a tight familial connection. If y'all agree on what care looks like, you probably have a pretty good familial connection, things like that.
Similar moral values contribute to that. How you want to, if you choose to raise kids or not, and if you do, how you want to raise them.
Yeah.
How you feel about things like education and schooling, like all these things tend to fill that familial bucket.
Okay. And what is next on the buckets for us?
We got platonic. That's more, your friend, emotional connection. You feel understood. You feel seen by this person. Y'all laugh and have joy together. You have fun together. That's the platonic.
Yeah, got each other's back.
Okay.
I have a question about the platonic bucket.
Mm-hmm.
So is the platonic bucket exclusive from a sexual connection of any sort? Okay.
None of the buckets are exclusive. You can have 1, 2, 3, 4, or 5. Like none of them is exclusive. So you can have a platonic connection and a sexual connection.
Okay.
That's the question I was gonna ask, Jeremy, because a lot of times people are like, "Oh no, we're friends. We cannot go there."
Mm-hmm.
I never understood that personally.
Right.
That's not a thing for me. For me, it's more like, you feel, that's not a thing for me. I can definitely have sex with friends.
I've had a conversation with someone where we were exploring a connection, and the way I look at it is everything's an experiment. In that time frame that we're just spending time together, and it's an experiment. Do we want to experiment with sex? Sure, let's try it. See how it goes. And there was someone who she and I were friends, for several years, at a distance, but friends to a degree. And then at some point we decided to explore a romantic and sexual connection, and realized that we loved our friendship. The sexual connection was cool and fun, and we would like to continue that, but there wasn't really a spark in terms of romance. So we didn't try to force it. And we literally just stayed being friends and admiring each other for the reasons that we do, and supporting each other the ways that we do and have. And then every once in a while, there's some sex.
So would we put that together with a sexual bucket then? Or
yes, that's what we're saying. Like you can be aligned with someone in one or more than one bucket at a time.
But what I'm saying is so it's like if we are platonic and it can include sex, would that fall within the sexual bucket? Or maybe you should explain the sexual bucket for us first.
All within both buckets. You'd have maybe you have a high connection in the sexual bucket and a medium connection in the sexual bucket, or high and high. but
You said
everything
sex
else.
both times.
Oh, sexual or platonic, and platonic bucket, right? So maybe you have like a high connection in a platonic bucket, you know, and a high one in the sexual bucket, or whichever
You know,
order
or
you
high or
want.
medium, you know.
I would say like the sexual bucket is about how the sex, you know, flows and feels with you. Some people, you have that kind of like natural sexual chemistry where it's like, you know, you're sitting here on the couch and the transition to sex is like seamless, you know? And then other people, it's not like that, you know?
Right.
Sometimes the transition, you're like, whoa, it's feeling a little awkward. It's kind of
Mhm.
weird, you know?
Turbulence before we land.
Right, you know? So, sexual bucket is like lots of different things, but it's about, you know, your drives, your chemistry, your vulnerabilities, how do those things align? Your kinks, your fetishes, all those things. How do they align?
So, as I'm sitting here listening to, I'm thinking like, I'm trying to like think about different people in my life, right? I'm just like, okay, so what if the sexual chemistry is explosive,
Mhm.
but the sexual energy is low? So basically, I'm highly sexual. He's not, he's, yeah, not as highly sexual as I am.
Um,
But when we finally
it's really good.
are
Mhm.
sexual, it's like, oh my God, like I can die right now, kind of
Where'd
thing.
you put that?
Mhm.
Where would you put that?
I would, if I'm only talking about those two things, I would probably like somewhere between medium and medium high is what I would say in terms of our sexual alignment. There's other elements, but if we're only talking about those two elements, based on what you just shared, I would say me and that person probably have a medium to a medium high alignment in the sexual bucket.
That's
Medium.
an interesting dynamic. I've actually had that happen only once, and it was way back with swinging.
Mm-hmm.
Um, Me and the other person's spouse, like no chemistry, like just we weren't having a conversation or anything like that. I was like, she's attractive. And then when it came time for all the activities, the energy was crazy. That was the first time I've had sex for that long and had that much energy in that moment. But yeah, that's a weird dynamic, and I'm glad to see that somebody else has experienced that.
Right.
It
Yeah.
happens.
Oh, I definitely have that in my life. It's great. Or not. It can be great. That's what
Interesting.
I trying to decide. Is it great? Because
It's
I
great for what
want
it
that
is.
magic to happen a lot, but it's
Yeah.
not.
Yeah.
Hmm. Hmm.
So that's pretty cool. I like that. Thank you. So, what is next on our bucket list? We
Well,
have
I guess
platonic, familial. We briefly
we
talked
talked
about.
about, what did we talk about? Platonic and familial and sexual.
Mhm.
So
Mhm.
one of the buckets that changed when Shanny and I began like talking about it was, initially I had a bucket called romance. And I remember Shanny and I were on a road trip, and we were talking through the buckets. And, you know, one of the beautiful things about our relationship is that Shanny has taken like my initial thoughts and framework and literally made them so much more, brought so much more context and nuance and ideas behind them. She's written several articles about the buckets and really gotten to, you know, compatibility buckets versus desirability buckets, and like how those things interact and play off each other, etc. We actually have a course that, you know, I'll share at the end as well, where she's created like an assessment, a buckets assessment for couples to take together individually and talk about together, who take our course together. So she's done so much amazing work with it. And one of the things she's done is she helped me think through the idea that romance shouldn't be a bucket in and of itself. Romance is actually something that emerges from a high alignment in the sexual bucket, the intellectual bucket, and then we added one called attraction, right? And so instead of in a romance bucket, now it's an attraction bucket. We got rid of romance, brought in attraction.
And romance is more like holistic. Romance is more like a combination.
Yeah, a combination where if all those things pour in, or there's like high, medium high to high alignment in those three buckets at least, there's a good chance that a romantic connection will emerge from those high alignments is how we talk about it now.
Okay.
So yeah. So I guess we could talk about attraction next then. Does that make
Yes.
sense? Any questions
Yes.
about that? Okay, following.
Jeremy, what do you think?
I think as you were explaining that kind of helped reveal something. We were talking about the person where the sexual energy going into it is one thing, but then it's more explosive in that. So maybe that is more of like a high sexual compatibility, but or alignment, but maybe lower on platonic or attraction or something, because the energy to get there isn't quite there, but once you get there, it's great. So I like the concept of the buckets, like really puts a lot of different dynamics you experience into perspective. Like I love that.
Thank you.
Yay.
Thank you.
All right, so we're gonna talk about attraction.
All right.
This is just like what draws you to someone. It's like sometimes it's how they look, maybe it's how they smell, the way their voice sounds, like how charming they are, little idiosyncrasies they have. So attraction can be lots of things. We try not to limit it to just physical, because there's so much that goes into attraction other than just what you're looking at. All of your senses are really involved when it comes to attraction.
Mm-hmm.
So this is just like what draws you to someone, like, oh my gosh, that magnetism, that excitement, that's like attraction.
Yeah, there's some people out there that say they are energetic people versus people who are visually attracted. Some people are energetically attracted.
So we tried
room for all those things.
Yeah, exactly.
Okay. I feel like it can be both. The reason why I said that, I used to think I had a type. I guess technically I have a type. Some of my friends, they say I do, but I'm not gonna describe what it is now. But I feel like people that I date, and I have different people in my life that are important to me, they all look so different physically, but my energy with them is so very different as well. I always say, like, there's a partner that I literally present as the I don't want to say worse, as a brat, basically. And it can't, like, I can't shake it off. It's like as soon as this person is like in my presence, I switch into a brat. And it's like, what is this? I don't even know what it is. So it's just different people. Like there's somebody, I'm just like a caretaker. It's like I have that need to care for this person, touch them, make them feel good, create peace around them. And it's just so many different things. Like I have another one that's like, oh, I am a porn star right now. It's just different energies that present themselves, make you feel sexy, or just different things. So I don't know. Like I'm trying to think, like, I don't know. Maybe physically I do like certain things because earlier I mentioned, like, I do prefer people who are definitely taller than me. I'm not saying you need to be 6 and up, but definitely taller than my 5'4". I guess maybe that's probably the only requirement, and everything else is more energetic, I want to say.
Okay. Nice.
I can't
Jeremy,
forget my favorite bucket though, the intellectual.
what's that?
I don't want us to forget about my favorite bucket, the intellectual.
Oh, we're not gonna forget. Yes. Jeremy, did you have something to add before Shani switches into the next one?
Not on that one. Actually, I like talking about the intellectual bucket. So yeah, go for
it.
I would say like that's like the one that one has a tendency to like sway me personally. I think it's not the case for everyone, which I've noticed. Like I think it's like romance has to just be a good blend of compatibility and desirability, however you combine those. Because I always think that the intellectual connection is a bit more important for me than even the platonic connection. Like, I like to be able to feel understood in those ways, that, the way that you speak and the way that your brain operates and the way that your brain like processes things can be understood by the other person without much translation. When people say you speak the same language, that's really what the intellectual connection is. It's like, it's not just the emotional connection. It's also like we're kind of like on the same wavelength. We kind of, we get each other in a way that, our brains just kind of mesh.
And you don't have to put a mask on when you're around a person that you have a high intellectual connection with or alignment with. You don't have to hide certain parts of yourself because of being fearful of being judged or misunderstood, because y'all just get each other. That's what a high intellectual alignment feels like. And
it feels like stimulating, refreshing, like you have a conversation with this person, regenerative. It doesn't feel draining. You have conversation with this person and you don't feel like you have to explain things as much as you normally do.
Okay. I like that.
We already talked about the romance being like a combination of all the things. So I try to be fairly methodical in the way I approach a lot of things. And sometimes I feel like I do so unnecessarily a little bit. But when I was practicing monogamy, I had a dating checklist. I know.
Most people have them.
I don't know. Most people, I think, keep it in their heads, kind of.
Like, I definitely had a list.
Yeah, so did I.
You got a physical list.
Intellectual alignment. I like it. But no, like 2 pages of like written out things, because from a monogamous standpoint, I'm thinking, okay, so if I'm going to enter a relationship, I need this person to be 80, 85, whatever percent of like all of these things that I'm looking for.
Yeah.
And what the relationship like shows is that they don't have to be. They can be high here, low here, medium, whatever. So yeah, just letting those connections be what they're supposed to be versus taking somebody and holding a list up like next to them and just
Right.
Exactly.
And saying that if they don't meet 85%, peace.
Get out of here.
No, I want to love you for what you bring. Like, we may be awesome for all the fitness stuff. Like, that may be our complete jam. We may have an excellent time doing that. And we don't fill those other buckets quite so much. And, like, I want that to be what it is versus saying, well, you met this thing on my checklist, but unfortunately, since you're not all these other things, you're a throwaway. Like you were saying earlier, like, no, I want to keep those connections and nurture what we do have.
And how many times, really, with what you just said, Jeremy, a lot of people pass on a lot of great relationships just because they have this list that is haunting them, right? So, and the person can be missing, because I remember, I'm not going to say who it is, but somebody was like, I want you to love me 100%. If you gave me 99%, that 1% is not there, then it's not worth it. And I'm just like, what sense does that make? You want 99%. It's to me, the list is kind of like that. It's like this person checks out so many different things on that list, and you have great connection, but yet because you kind of missing this one and that one and that one, so yeah, we're not gonna be a good match, and you pretty much miss out on great relationships because of that.
Absolutely.
Indeed. There's so many people that can add value to our lives in so many different ways, and I feel like a lot of folks miss out on community.
Yeah.
Because of that mindset, that all or nothing mindset, that throwaway mindset. Either you meet all these requirements or I'm throwing you back in. And it's like that person could have been a bomb ass plug for, fixing your tire or your engine or something when something went wrong, or, there's so many different things that we could, support each other as connected community, that I also value this process for. But I also wanted to say too, to touch on the intellectual piece. Someone asked the question, I forget her name, but like, how do you bring this up, in conversation with someone that you may be, getting to know? And I remember early on having maybe a little bit of doubt, like, would it scare someone away if I start talking this way? But then I realized, well, if it does, then we're not intellectually aligned.
Exactly.
And that's like a great tell, a great early on tell, a great indicator of, even though we may like the way each other look
and talk
and talk or whatever. But once I start telling you about how I want to approach getting to know you, and you're like, that's weird, that's too methodical or whatever, then it's like, again, that's data. That's good information.
Yeah.
And that's why so many people send their representatives, basically, like they don't show up as themselves because they're afraid they're not going to be liked, and they really want this to be a thing. They want this to work out or whatever. So,
well, that's why I said long-term sustainable
yes,
relationships.
Because you can only hide for so long.
You can only keep the mask on so long.
Yeah,
exactly.
You can only keep it on for so long.
Exactly. So I know it's definitely over an hour. So we're gonna take the next few comments and then wrap it up, because we did go over all 5 of the buckets, right?
Yeah.
Yes.
Hey, Sky. Hi, guys. I get it, but very few people are able to navigate the swap style. So what do you think about not finding other partners, or even partners who are into it for the moment?
Not finding other partners. Like, I'm wondering.
Yeah, I'm not sure if I understand. I'm trying to understand. What do you think about?
She got a couple more. True poly people are 1 in a million. And then what about being involved with amazing people who are not poly, but just enjoying it for what it is?
I think I actually had one of these where I got involved with a monogamous woman, but she was kind of like, well, I'm attracted to you. So like, yeah, let's check this out. And what happened was she was trying to force herself into exploring polyamory. And then I was trying to put myself in a situation where I probably shouldn't have been in the first place. And what happened is we didn't really give that relationship the probably respect that it deserved, because we tried to force it into a romantic connection. And I don't think that we allowed that to just be what it was. We had high platonic alignment, high attraction alignment. There was probably medium high sexual alignment. But once again, like when it came to that intellectual alignment, we like cross wires all the time. So yeah, like she was trying to enjoy it for what it was, but I think we were trying to, once again, force it to be a romantic connection. And it probably wasn't.
Yeah. I think what, Sky was saying, to me, the way I'm interpreting it is like, everything ain't got to be that serious. Exactly. What if you just meet somebody and y'all just vibing, and, my answer would be, then vibe on.
Yeah.
Vibe on. Like,
vibe till it stop vibing.
If that person doesn't have any expectations beyond the vibe, that's fine. What I found in my dating, I was dating in a polyamorous specific space, and people had certain expectations, generally speaking, of me in that process. So it was important for me to communicate in a way that I communicated to, something about expectations to
adjust them,
manage expectations.
Yeah, for sure.
To manage expectations. So someone knew what was involved with me. Because a lot of polyamorous people, they go into a dating context looking to jump on the escalator to get to partner.
Mm-hmm.
And it was like, with me, that's not, I don't roll that way. And I just wanted to make sure I set that expectation up front.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But when you vibe this guy, just vibe.
Just go with the flow.
Yeah.
You just never know what may come out of it. So
I want to say one more thing. Like, if that situation arose, if I met somebody and the vibes was good, for me, that's just more like me and that person may just be vibing in the platonic context. And if we want to, have sex, we maybe, vibing in that context. But for me, it's just all about communication. I would just make sure that those things were communicated up front, because what I may be thinking is a vibe, someone else may be thinking we're working our way up the escalator. So my
Right.
thing is, it's just all about communication.
Yep. And that was a me thing, because that was earlier into like my polyamorous journey, was thinking that if you encounter somebody and you're attracted to them and the platonic connection is high and the sexual connection is high, oh, this is a romance kind of thing. And yeah, so outside of the concept of the buckets, like it's easy to see alignment in one or more categories as, okay, I'm exploring this in a romantic way.
Yeah. Makes sense. Yeah, I am so happy we got to talk about the bucket.
Yeah.
Hopefully our audience, hey, PBD, somebody just jumped on. Hey, PBD fam, just sending your love. I got on late, but we'll be catching up tomorrow. Thank you, Sugar. Yes, it will be available to view on YouTube, Facebook. I'm not sure about Instagram. I've been having some hiccups with it. I don't know how it works. I'm not very good with technology. I'm trying. Awesome discussion. Thank you. So where can people find you guys? I don't know if you can type on the comment post yourself. Do you see where you can do that?
Let me
So we
see.
can send your information where people can find you and your work. Because I am very sure a lot of people want to follow up on all, because we really, I mean, this is just the surface of the work.
That's mainly, most people are chatting on Facebook, right?
I think right now we have them mainly on YouTube.
Yeah, like they're on YouTube more.
Because okay, interesting.
Yeah, but this one actually it spreads out everywhere.
Oh, okay. So if I join the chat, it says I have to connect my YouTube. That one.
Mm-hmm.
Interesting.
Yeah.
Okay, I'm gonna try to do that real quick. But Jeremy can go first, and then we'll share our info on how folks can stay connected with us.
All right. As far as information, I don't have anything specific like a podcast or anything like that. But if anyone does want to connect, if we're not in the PBD group or anything like that, you can just find me on Facebook, Jeremy Spriggs, and I'm available. I like talking to people. So yeah, there's not much to that.
Sorry, is it 1G or 2Gs?
Oh, 2Gs.
Okay.
Yeah, SPRIGGS.
All right. You can find him, everybody and ladies. Advertising for you. And then we have Sunshine.
Yeah, we have like a few places you can find us, but we're on YouTube, Sunshine and Rainbows, at Sunshine and Rainbows. We're on Instagram at Sunshine Rainbows, no and.
Okay.
And we have our media platform, sustainablesolutionsmedia.com.
Okay.
And that's where we publish like articles and various different things that's also, we also have the podcast comes out over there as well.
Yeah, that's probably if you're gonna remember one, that's a great place to start.
I would say start there also. Sustainablesolutionsmedia.com.
Sustainable media solutions.
Solutionsmedia.com.
.com. All right, folks. Let's see. Sustainablesolutionsmedia.com. All right. And that's where you write, right? Because I just read one of your articles. I am very much like short span, but it was a long article, but I read it till the end because I wanted to know more. Oh, the next section, I want to know more what he's talking about. And I found it very fascinating. Just today, I was talking to one of my clients about life in different places, parenting and all that stuff, how we are doing things differently with our children and things like that. It's just, we got into a lot of talk. And then I was telling her about your article, how I could relate to that, and how one day I spanked my youngest, and it hurt me so badly. And I from that day, that was a while back, but it was like, I cannot do this, because we have got to do better as parents, because we knew how hard it was growing up as children without a voice. Um, so anyway, that's a whole other podcast that we're going to have
Yeah.
on sustainablesolutionsmedia.com, because it talks about a whole other different aspect of your life. But yeah, I really enjoyed that article.
Thank you. Thank you. And we have so it's a media platform. So there's different sections. And you're talking about an article that was written in one section. But the
Okay.
section that you'll find all the articles on the 5 buckets is the sustainable relationships section. That's where you'll find those articles, as well as other articles about relationships and polyamory.
And the
Okay.
podcast.
And you'll find the section Sunshine and Rainbows is its own section at sustainablesolutionsmedia.com. There's a lot of goodies over
It's
there.
like a big umbrella.
It's a big umbrella for all of our work. And both
All of your
Shady and I both put out a lot of content, written and audio, podcasts, etc. So a lot over the years, I put out a lot of content, and it can all be found there.
Awesome. And everybody knows where to find me, the Poly Pimps, or Air Meet Me to Charles, or with the music, Me to Charles and Essence Creole. We have one last comment. Maggie said, I want access to the recording of this show and the articles mentioned, because you guys are putting into words what I have been trying to convey. Thanks
Yay.
to all of you on this platform. Thank you, Maggie.
Yes, thank you. Thank you, everyone.
Maggie has been on our show a couple of times. She is actually sex therapist. So we've enjoyed having her, and she actually discussed some BDSM stuff as well with our audience. It was pretty amazing. She's been on here twice. We like to have repeat guests. So hopefully this will not be y'all's only time, Jeremy and Sunshine, not y'all's last time on the Poly Pimps. Like we mentioned, this is the last episode of the year. And next year we are gonna, bring in more information, not just relationships, but everything that's around relationships, like STIs and other things like cancer. How do you deal with partners, when they're sick and things like that? So we're going to have a lot of great guests that are actually lined up for next year, season 3. We are very excited. Thank you guys for being here. I had a lot of fun, and hopefully we'll have you again. Happy holidays, Merry Christmas, Happy New Year to everyone watching. And remember to follow all of us. You got the information in the section, in the comment sections. Follow us on Facebook, IG, YouTube, subscribe, all of it. We're all on social media, and it costs you absolutely nothing to just click on it. Thank you very much for your support.
Yes. Peace,
Yes.
everybody.
Have
Love
a good
y'all.
night.
Love y'all.
Love y'all.